This is a special edition from the Reader's Court. Citizens United and the Price of Staying Alive. In this special edition, I want to show you what corruption looks like when it comes home. Not the cartoon version, not the movie version, not a man sliding cash across the table in some dark garage somewhere. I mean the real version, the American version. The kind that walks into a kitchen, sits down at the family table, and decides what a child's life will cost this month. The father comes home from the pharmacy. He has a bag in one hand, groceries in the other. He's still wearing his work shirt. His sleeves are rolled up. He's not even had time to breathe yet. He sets the pharmacy bag on the counter. He sets the eggs down. He stands there in the tired warmth of that old apartment with the radiator hissing under the window, dirty snow outside on the curb. Then he looks at the receipt, looks at it once, and again, and again. Because after a while, the number at the bottom no longer feels like a price, it feels like a verdict. $1,842.16. That is the price for 30 days of insulin. 30 days. Not luxury, not pleasure, not indulgence. That's the price of insulin. For the drug his 12-year-old son needs in order to stay alive. And across the table sits the boy. 12 years old, doing math homework, asking fraction questions. Chewing lightly on the end of his pencil, still young enough to believe that adults are running things. Still young enough to believe that if something is necessary, if something keeps a child alive, then surely this country would not make it impossible to afford it. That's where the heartbreak happens. Because children still believe in the decency long after the system has been sold out. The boy has a glucose monitor clipped to his waistband. Every few minutes he gives off a soft little yellow beep. Quiet signal, quiet warning, a quiet reminder that his family does not get to forget what's at stake. Not for an hour, not for an evening, not even at the kitchen table with homework open in front of them. The father answers the math question. He keeps his voice steady, keeps his face under control, keeps the room from cracking open. Because that's what a father does. They hold the room together while the numbers try to tear it apart. And all around them, the apartment tells the truth. The lancets in the drawer, the testing supplies, the alcohol swabs, the glucose tabs, the sticky notes with readings written down and crossed out, the pharmacy bag on the counter, the insulin already softening in the cold pack. It's not drama to them. This is maintenance. This is survival. This is the unpaid labor of keeping a child alive in the richest country on earth. And then the television murmurs from the other room. There's talk out of Washington. A bill that might cap insulin prices. A bill that might finally force this rotten system to back off a little. A bill that might mean a father could go to the pharmacy without feeling ambushed. A bill that might mean the child's life is no longer treated like a premium product. And then something dangerous enters the room. Hope, real hope. Not the fake kind, not the campaign kind, not the slogan kind. Hope that a number has been attached to it. $35. That's what the bill might mean. $35 a month instead of $1,842.16. And the boy hears it. He lifts his head and asks the kind of question that can break a grown man clean in half. If it passes, does that mean mine will only cost $35? And the father says yes, or something close enough to yes. Close enough for a child to start building tomorrows. And suddenly the astronomy weekend on the refrigerator is not a fantasy anymore. Now maybe they can go. Now maybe this summer is not swallowed whole by medicine. Now maybe the father is allowed to buy something besides survival. Now maybe a child gets to be a child. Telescope, Saturn, museum, a night away, a little future opening up where there was only pressure before. This is what an ordinary hope looks like in America now. Not abundance, not ease, not comfort. Just a family asking whether medicine will leave the room for one small joy. And this is where I want the country to wake up. Because people hear a case like this and they think it's all about healthcare. It's not about healthcare. People hear words like Citizens United and they think that means campaign ads, election laws, super PACs, donors, consultants, television time. They think it's abstract. They think it lives in Washington. They think it stays there, and it doesn't stay there. Citizens United comes home. It comes home in the form of insulin. It comes home in the form of chemotherapy. It comes home in the form of rent. It comes home in the form of groceries. It comes home in the form of a father trying to decide whether his son gets medicine and wonder in the same month. That's what wealthy control of government means in everyday life. Not simply that they buy the politician. That's almost too clean a sentence for what really happens. No. They buy the environment around the politician. They buy the pressure. They buy the caution. They buy the silence. They buy the delay. They buy the committee room. They buy the schedule. They buy the moment before the vote even happens. They do not always need a senator to stand up and say, I oppose affordable insulin. That would be too obvious, too ugly, too honest. They do something more American than that. They make sure the vote disappears. And that's exactly what happens. The father's phone vibrates on the table. He picks it up, opens up the news alert, and there it is. The bill is gone, not defeated, not voted down, not publicly argued against by men willing to face the nation and say a child's life is worthless, more worthless than an industry's comfort. No, it's simply pulled from the floor quietly, procedurally. After industry objections, after negotiations, after continued discussion, that language matters. Because in this country, the ugliest things are almost always done in the most polite language. Nobody says, we choose donors over your son. Nobody says, we choose lobbyists over your kitchen table. Nobody says, we choose profits over the life of a 12-year-old boy. They say the bill remains under discussion. They say negotiations continue. They say more study is needed. They say there are concerns about market disruptions. And that's how moral cowardice speaks when it wants to sound responsible. And all the while, the boy is still talking about Saturn, still talking about telescopes. Still asking whether the rings would be clear, still standing in the brief little patch of hope before the truth reaches him. And the father now knows something the child has yet to discover. He knows the future just got a little bit dimmer. He knows the people who run this country did not even have the courage to reject relief in the open. They just made it go away. That's power in America. Not accountable power, not noble power, purchased power, shielded power, power that serves money first and explains itself later, if ever at all. So let me say this plainly. This is not a side issue. This is not policy trivia. This is not the boring machinery of government doing its boring little dance. This is the central scandal. Because when the wealthy own the government, they do not need to send soldiers into your house. They don't need to lock you in chains. They simply arrange the rules so that every ordinary act of survival becomes profitable for somebody richer than you. Need insulin? Pay. Need treatment? Wait. Need an appeal? Beg. Need justice? Get in line behind the donors. This is how it works. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The country changes shape in front of you. The Constitution's still there. The elections are still there. The speeches are still there. The flag is still there. But the human meaning of self-government is gone. Because government no longer asks, what is the right thing? It asks, what protects the machine? What protects the money? What protects the few who finance the political survival? That's the real question now. And if you're an ordinary American, the answer to that question comes for you in pieces. A denied claim, a higher deductible, a refill price, a delayed vote, a vanished bill, a child at a kitchen table learning far too young that the body isn't expensive in a country where billionaires live very comfortably. And let us strip away the last of the illusion. This is not a story about an evil man. It does not require villains twirling mustaches. It doesn't require a secret room. It does not require a crime in the old-fashioned sense. That is what makes it even worse. The lobbyist does his job. The donor protects his interest. The senator protects his career. The party protects its funding streams. The industry protects its margins. Everyone follows procedure. Everyone stays inside the rules. And still, the child pays the price. That is the revelation. The system does not need monsters. It only needs incentives that place wealth above decency, above integrity, above morality, and above human life. That is what Citizens United helped harden into place. Not merely permission for the wealthy to speak, permission for wealth to shape the political weather itself. Permission for money to stand around every decision that matters and whispers, careful now, don't go too far. Do not threaten the arrangements. Do not make the donors nervous. Do not forget who keeps the whole thing standing. And so the vote disappears and the father sits there. And the receipt stays under the glass of water and the number at the bottom doesn't change. $1,842.16. The child's life itemized. The nation's priorities itemized. A government owned in all the ways that matter itemized. This is what I want people to understand. When the wealthy own the government, you become a pawn in a game that makes billionaires millions of dollars at the expense of your life. Not metaphorically, literally. Your treatment, your stress, your debt, your delay, your fear, your child's dependence on a drug, and all of it can be converted into a revenue stream, and then converted into influence. And then that influence is used to protect the very conditions that keep you trapped. That is the circle. That is the racket. That is the everyday meaning of a captured government. So when they tell you this is complicated, don't be fooled. When they tell you it's the procedure, don't be pacified. And when they tell you no law was broken, you remind them that legality is not morality. And when they tell you this is just how the process works, look back at that kitchen table. Look at that father. Look at that boy. Look at that receipt. Look at that hope entering the room for one brief, beautiful moment before power reached down and smothered the life out of it. And then say what must be said. This is not freedom. This is not representation. This is not democracy worthy of the name. This is a system that protects wealth first and leaves ordinary people to call the results legitimate. Well, the system did not fail. It answered the question it was designed to answer. And that question was never what was the right thing. That question is, what protects the power, what protects the wealth, what protects the few who can afford to shape the outcome before the public ever gets to see the result? That is the answer the father received. That's the answer the boy received. That's the answer this country keeps getting. And until the people see that clearly, they will keep mistaking procedures for justice. They will keep mistaking delays for complexity. They will keep mistaking purchased government for self-government. I'm not going to make that mistake. And neither should you.